questions. But essentially, and I think as we've communicated before, that the PMP is really the roadmap for the project, and it's a continually updated document, so it's a very important framework that gets us all organized to be able to deliver the project on scope, on budget, and on schedule. So it's a very important task order, and it's been executed, and work started actually this week on Tuesday with a kickoff meeting at the port for the last 2 days. So that was very productive. The next task order we see soonest coming down the road then is to provide and staff the project management office. We have identified where that will actually be sited at the port, at the south end of our warehouse building opposite our admin office. There's, I believe it was the old port admin offices at one time, but there's space down at the south end, and so the proximity to the port and to the project staff is very good.
And the project staff is identified as the folks from CH2.
That's correct. There's 4 full-time key staff that will occupy that project management office. Lon and Elizabeth are 2 of those personalities, and there'll be 2 more coming on board and transitioning in, the design and planning lead and a project admin lead as well. And we expect to have that task order executed before the end of April to provide that. There have been no scope changes to date. The schedule for the task order that's been executed, as I mentioned, it started on March 25th, which was Tuesday, and it's a 12-week duration. There's and you can see some detail towards the bottom of page 2 on the kickoff meeting, when we expect the draft project management plan to be submitted in May, followed by a review meeting and finalization of the document before June 20th. So that is the detailed schedule for that task order. The budget for this task order is $83,124 lump sum. There have been no change requests so far. There are no issues to report on. We wanted to communicate the funding sources for the project at this time. There is $126,796,000 and some change from state grants and bonds, and port equity of $3,408,000 for a total of in the neighborhood of $130 million. So that's the high-level overview of where we stand today at the end of the first 30 days.
And as Todd was briefing, as you can see, you have 7 elements.
Mm-hmm.
So what we thought was to give you a status, and the status would be to explain what task orders have been issued, and then to explain what task orders would be pending. And the reason that we have an A, a 1A, we have CH2 and Hill, but as we get further and further into this, there'll be other organizations that will have task orders issued to them. So they'll be indicated under task as well, under status as well. Okay? And then scope changes. Any time that there has been any type of change in scope, we'll identify that and what the consequence is. Schedule. The schedule is part of the PMP, so they're developing the schedule now. But basically the schedule, once it's published, will be a good guide for all of us, and all of us sitting around this table and others, to check where the schedule says we should be, and then we see where we actually are. So we'll see how we're tracking with the project. And the budget, obviously the budget is extremely important. And so as each task order evolves, we'll be tracking the task order, what was agreed upon, and if there's any changes to that, and any changes, of course, would result in some type of a monetary difference. And the change could be that something we agreed we didn't really need to do, and so the scope could change with fewer items on it, and that means it could be a reduction in price, or it could be a addition. But the good thing about that is you'll know what we started with, you'll know how we ended, and hopefully we'll end with something equal to or less than what the original agreement was on each task. Sometimes that's beyond your control and it changes, but you'll be able to identify it and monitor it.
Okay.
Change requests, we'll explain those in detail. If there's a change request coming up, not one that's been approved, but it could be that we know that we've got a change that's out there, and something that we either overlooked or something that was unforeseen, and so we may have to change it, and we'll identify that. That change request, by the way, does not mean that a change was granted. It just means that's what the contractor or whomever says that they think they need to change. And that doesn't-
Somebody makes a request, could be us, could be them. could be
Exactly
them.
right, yeah. And then issues, if we've got any outstanding issues or any contemplated issues coming up, we'll identify those as well.
Hello,
As soon as
this
we.
is Jennifer Johnston. Sorry to miss your call. Please leave a message. Thank you.
So as soon as we learn of what those issues are, they'll be reported in these monthly reports. And then the last thing is the funding sources, and the funding sources, as they change, in other words, we get more funding or whatever, then that will change. Where you'll be able to keep track of where we are on budget is when we talk about budget, okay? So we'll show you where we are in relation to in relationship to the budget, where we feel we should be at that point in time. Yes, sir.
What is, if I may,
You
what
may.
is the source of the port equity? Is that, are those funds, or is that
No,
product, or
it's-
is that staff, or is that, what is that?
It's money that's been generated from the port revenues,
Okay.
that's been set aside for the project.
It's not a remainder from the previous operation?
Well, I mean,
Could be.
It could be, sure.
I just, yeah.
Patrick, I'll get you in just a moment. I was derelict. I'd like to run around and everybody introduce themselves so we've got a record of who's in attendance at the meeting. Bernie Hall, chairing the committee meeting for Jennifer Johnston. Thank you, Cindy.
Todd Cole, Port Engineer.
Monelli Chase Toon Hill.
Rob Owens with
Rich Wilson, Port of Anchorage.
Patrick Flynn, Assembly.
Amy Kowalski, Assembly.
Response cannot be completed as dialed.
George Vacalis, municipality.
Steve Schrader, Project Management Engineering.
Thank you.
Response cannot be completed.
And Ron Haddon.
Ron Haddon.
Yeah.
Our
Patrick.
First, I presume when you mentioned that we'll have other contractors under the task orders.
Digital or one is not required to
Ron, we'll get her later.
It's okay.
We're
We're gonna be through before we get her.
We're gonna be wrapped up here before you get her on the phone.
I presume that what you're referring to is additional contract awards that will make
Yes.
dump them under this as opposed to the
Yes, sir.
subcontract.
Yes, sir, correct.
And then, my question for you, Ron, particular reason why we did task order one as lump sum as opposed to T&M?
It lent itself more to a firm fixed price than a T&M. It's pretty well defined scope.
Okay. And then finally, if Lon and Elizabeth could introduce themselves and tell us a little more about themselves.
I'm Lon Alexander. I'm a program manager, actually, technically, my title, I guess, I'm a senior program manager for CH Toon Hill. I've been with the firm now over 5 years. Before that, I had been with other firms that have had construction background, and I'm a Coast Guard veteran, so I have over 30 years of experience. I'm currently, and have been for the last 5 years, the program manager for the Portugal Port Restoration in Mississippi. And when we proposed on this, we pointed out that there are very similar responsibilities and requirements between the two programs, so we're able to bring that experience up here. So, looking forward to the project very much.
Are you moving up or?
I am moving up. My wife has arthritis, and so she will be here in the summer, and in the winters we'll probably either stay in Mississippi or in Portland where we have friends. So,
Welcome.
thank you.
And I was with Calvin CH. I was in with CH for about 12 years, 13. And on the operations lead, I've been doing a similar thing in Gulfport, for Port Gulfport for 6 years. I'm also the environmental lead and a variety of other things that need to be done. So, like Juan said, it's very similar in the war issues and backgrounds and something. So I do all the reporting and keep us moving.
Amy.
Thank you. I personally would like to say that I like this layout. I think this, I'm very visual. One of the things that I've come to appreciate is the SAP updates, where we have, especially focusing on the schedule,
when we start to see something that might become an issue, it would be nice to have some sort of, you
Red,
know-
yellow, green?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
we
I-
can do that,
and
and
if
we're
you-
heading in that direction.
If you could just morph that into the schedule
Yeah.
for me, that would be helpful, because I would like to know there's a yellow before there's a red. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, what we anticipate is that would be an attached page,
Yeah.
would bog down the front, but,
That's
but
exactly
that
what I
detail
was-
would be attached, and
Mhm.
That would be helpful for me, because I find in the SAP discussions, it helps me to focus.
And we're hoping you use a lot more green ink than you do red ink.
I think we're out of the bad colors.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for the time. I too, my own look at this is I like the format, but I'd really like to have the chair look at it. And like I say, we will be reorganizing, and so we'll have some more people stepping up, and they should be able to have some ownership for this when we do it.
So we'll plan just tentatively the last week in April for the next one. So-
Perfect.
Same time, same day?
Well, we'll ask the
Same
chair or
order.
Jennifer to schedule,
Right.
but we would suggest that third week, that last week.
We can have it down there.
Yeah, good idea.
Sure, that's all.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
As long as
we're
you're doing
done.
script searches.